The Pulse Network. It's social TV.
The roof of the Metrodome. The roof was not on fire. We don't need no, never mind. That was the amazing images from the Associated Press and Fox that shot it originally of the snow collapsing from that big, huge storm in the Midwest at the Metrodome, which is causing havoc with the Vikings and NFL games. But there are some people that are happy, not about that video, but happy about all the snow. By the way, welcome back to Sports Buzz. I'm Butch Stearns. This is the show we do every day from 10 to 12 here on the Pulse Network at thepulsenetwork.com. And we're glad to have you as a part of us. Every Wednesday at 10:30, we now take the weather conditions around the country and the ski conditions around the country, and we give you the latest updates in a segment we partner up with Snowcountry.com. So without further ado, let's dive right into it at Snowcountry.com and bring in our good buddy Chuck Devine from Snowcountry.com. Good morning, Chuck. How are you?
Good morning, Butch. How's it going?
Everything's good. Where are you today? You in your offices as usual?
Yes. As a matter of fact, I'm in my broadcast studio right now. As you can see, some of the broadcast padding right behind me.
Because you guys do tons and tons of radio hits also, don't you?
That's correct. We serve more than 500 radio stations, and during the course of a winter, that's more than 100,000 ski reports. And I've been at this for 25 years, so you can imagine how much that is. I'm just going to show you. This is like a couple years worth of introductions and scripts that we've done. So,
well, since this is our second get to know each other together, let's remind people what snowcountry.com is all about and what you guys aim to do on a weekly basis.
Well, snowcountry.com is a website, of course, that serves people who are interested in skiing. We also serve a lot of different organizations, whether it be the Associated Press or the New York Times. We supply them with the latest ski information as it is supplied to us by ski areas. As a matter of fact, we are the ones who created the criteria for ski conditions around the country. So, you know, back some 30, 40 years ago, when ski areas used to rate themselves as good, fair, poor, we've changed that around to where there was actual descriptions for what you find out there, whether it be packed powder that comes from, powdery snow that's either from machine-made snow that's been groomed and made to feel nice and smooth, loose and frozen granular, which deals with snow that gets processed after we've had some thawing and freezing like we've had recently, as a matter of fact. Powder skiing, which is that deep powdery snow that we're seeing a lot about out in the West or even in the Midwest. So we're the ones that created that criteria. We have a website that has several hundred ski areas, both alpine and cross-country, letting people know exactly what conditions they'll find, as well as anything else they want to find out about ski areas, including links right to those areas so you can find out what they're saying too.
That's interesting, Chuck. So when you, a little bit more about that, when you first did that, where did the spirit of that come from? How did it become universal? And there wasn't any agency or organization you had to go through to do that,
well, right? It sort of started out with my previous boss. His name is Phil Camp, and this was back in the late 60s, early 70s. He, along with Foster Chandler, who was the marketing director at Killington at the time, they got together, and what had happened was some radio stations like WBZ had given them a call because they wanted to get information. They wanted to get ski information as well as the Boston Globe and the New York Times. So they felt that they needed to develop a criteria that was going to show people what it's like at the slopes that's different than good, fair, and poor, which are very objective words. Is that right? No, subjective words, excuse me. And replace it with something that's more objective, like packed powder and loose granular powder skiing, frozen granular snow, hard pack, and the terms that we use today, which are the terms that our organization established years ago.
Interesting. We showed that video off the top of the big storm in the Midwest. I talked to a friend of mine in Minnesota the other day, and he said, and he grew up in Minnesota, he said it was, when you considered all the conditions, one of the worst storms he's seen in the last 20 years. Now, that said, from a snow perspective, how were the slopes affected? Was it all snow? Did the rain hurt it? I know you got, when you think of the Midwest, you got Minnesota, you got Michigan, Wisconsin, Illinois. You got lots and lots of ski areas out there.
Well, when you think about the Midwest itself, I'm looking at Minnesota, which got all snow, a little bit more in those southern areas, like Afton Alps, for example. And then, as you get to the UP of Michigan, they got all snow. All of Michigan got snow, all of the northern states. So Minnesota, Wisconsin, Michigan, they all picked up snow. Also, ski areas in Illinois, for example, also were able to pick up snow from that as you go further north. So they all did very well. In fact, most of those areas are already skiing and riding on 75 to 100% of their terrain. So the cold weather has been fairly consistent there, as opposed to us. Yeah, we've had consistent cold for the most part outside of that Sunday and Monday blip, as you might call it.
Let's talk about some individual mountains out there. Boyne and Crystal Mountain are ones you want to focus on.
Well, sure, because we have pictures from those areas. And Boyne Mountain and Boyne Highlands are two different areas that are in northern Michigan. They're up by the Traverse City region,
Yep.
So you get a lot of lake effect snow as you're looking at, Lake Michigan up in that area. So they end out picking up a lot of snow that way. So especially this time of year when the waters are still warm and the air gets very cold, sometimes those areas can pick up snow day after day after day. So you could have one area picking up a foot of snow and then another area just 20 miles away from that area that may be picking up, only a few inches. But they're off to a very good start at this point, and I suspect that those areas will be moving in on 100% by the holidays because it's nothing but consistent cold, and a lot of those spots have picked up plenty of snow already. In fact, Indian Head, where we do have some video of Indian Head in Michigan, they've picked up 29 inches of snow over the past week.
Wow.
And they picked up 5 feet of snow during this season so far. So it's been a strong season for them. They're located on the UP a little bit closer to Wisconsin.
Now, people in Michigan know this all too well, and people have ever been there. The UP is the Upper Peninsula, and it's way up north. I want to ask you about lake effect. I'll give you my definition of it because I lived in Minnesota for 2 years. Then my wife and I moved to Michigan before we came back home. And I'm curious what lake effect snow means, because to me what lake effect meant was the, what's the word I'm looking for? Well, here's what it meant to me. For example, we'd be in Detroit and you could drive to Cleveland. And if it was raining in the summertime, you could get tons of rain off the lake, but get nothing when you got away from the lakes, because the lakes are like oceans out there. When it comes to lake effect snow, I've felt the same way sometimes. Cleveland could get hammered at times, and Michigan was getting nothing, or vice versa. Is that pretty much the lake effect when it comes to snow?
Well, yeah, because what happens is you end up getting direct shots of snow a lot of times. So Western New York in particular, you have areas out there like Holiday Mountain and Peak and Hollymont, and what happens is with those areas, Kissing Bridge too, is that you get snow, and depending on which way the wind is blowing off Lake Ontario or Lake Erie, what would end out happening is that one of those areas may get 2 feet of snow, and then another area may get 3 inches, and another one not far away from there may get absolutely nothing. So it really all depends on which way the wind is blowing, and you have certain towns that will always get hammered with the big snow. But the other thing about the lake effect is that it can be so strong at times as that snow starts going south, and areas like Seven Springs, Pennsylvania, Snowshoe and Timberline in West Virginia, Wisp in Maryland, they're also getting in on lake effect snow, which is from the Great Lakes, which is well over 100 miles away.
So let's head down to the
Mid-Atlantic. Actually happened in the past couple weeks.
It did. That's what I was going to ask you. Let's head down to the Mid-Atlantic. And has the lake effect snow really helped out West Virginia, Pennsylvania, and all that area there?
Well, sure. They didn't completely escape the same rain that we got over the weekend, but at the same time, they were able to cash in on lake effect snow, and it's been full steam ahead for areas like Seven Springs in Pennsylvania, for example. They picked up 14 inches of snow during the past few days. So that's after a little bit of wet weather came in on Sunday. They rebounded once again and picked up fresh snow, and that was on top of what was like 40 inches of snow before that to kick off their season. So they're off to a pretty fast start. And Snowshoe, West Virginia, very much the same thing, as well as Timberline. Those areas picking up a lot of fresh snow. They've had a lot of days with powder skiing already.
And in that area also in Pennsylvania, talk about Shawnee, Pennsylvania. I love the name because my girls and I, my wife, ski at Shawnee Peak up in Maine, but this is in Pennsylvania.
Yes, well, you have you have the Poconos, and New Jersey and Southern New York, and a lot of those areas got themselves going last week, and that wasn't as much from the natural snow, but from the snowmaking. But what we had was basically 200 hours of nonstop snowmaking that went as far south as the Poconos and even areas south of that. So Shawnee, Jack Frost, Big Boulder, Camelback, Elk Mountain, Snow Mountain, to name several. All these spots in that quick amount of time were able to get themselves 50% open with at least a dozen trails. So you went from, the very beginning of December, like around December 1st, where we had nothing open, to a week later seeing, around 200 trails open up between the Poconos and New Jersey. And now we're in another stretch just like the one we had last week, even just a slight bit colder, which means that a lot of those areas will be 100% by Christmas because these areas are completely snowmaking dependent. Maybe they have one or two trails that they rely on natural snow to get open, but for the most part, these trails all depend on machine snow. And when you get weather this cold, especially when temperatures are in the teens at night here they're in the single numbers, you're looking at ski areas that can get to 100% by the holidays.
Right.
They've already had that long 1 week nonstop stretch. We're going into another one that's just like that.
Chuck, I want to ask you about snow tubing also, because there are people that aren't skiers or aren't boarders or, just don't feel like it's their thing to do. But it is the holiday season. We're a week and a half away from Christmas. People are thinking about making their travel plans and going to visit relatives and going up north here in New England or other places. But with all this snow now that's hit at this time of year, snow tubing is, as you pointed out before, it's a great family thing to do. And that's something you need to think about too when you get a lot of snow, because that makes it a lot of fun, doesn't it?
Well, it's becoming very, very popular, and I think what ski areas discovered is that there are any way that you can have good times outdoors in the mountains in the winter is a great thing, and snow tubing has become extremely popular because what ski areas do is that they set up these snow tubing lanes, one next to the other, so at times you can have as many as 8, 10, 15 different snow tubing lanes lined up next to each other, and then they're running down to the distance of, say, 3 or 4 football fields. So you can get going at a good clip, and you can kind of see it's almost set up a little bit like a bowling alley, and you can get groups of tubes go down on individual tubes, but there's no balance required. So for those people who may be a little bit skittish about skiing or snowboarding and just want to go and have a good time at the mountains, or maybe they never learned, this is their opportunity to go and also have some stories to share after they're all done. And also, skiers and snowboarders like to do it as well, perhaps after their ski day, because a lot of places have snow tubing under the lights. If we're looking at a local place around Boston, Neshoba Valley has their own separate snow tubing area. It's just down the block from the ski area, and they have that all set up for snow tubing. And you see it at a lot of different ski areas. Some of the larger resorts may do it on weekends only, and then a lot of people have it as a daily business, and a lot of school trips go out to it, but just a great way to have fun in the winter, sort of like, when we were kids and we went to our old sledding hill. Only difference here is that you can hook up the tube to a surface lift, and it pulls you right back up, and the lanes are all set up for you, so it's a lot of fun.
Now see, Kyle, snow tubing is something. Bring up that video of snow tubing again. That's something you could do. Oh, that's all right. Leave it. We got one of our producers here is from Florida, Chuck, and I want to have you talk to him, because when I bring up skiing, he's like, no, it's water skiing. I can't go out and ski. Why would I want to go? Say hello, Kyle.
Wait, now, if this guy's been water skiing, I can tell you right now that snow skiing is much easier to learn, easier to pick up than water skiing.
So Kyle, chime in. Say hello to Chuck here.
Hey, Chuck, I got a question. Is it easier to drink a beer while snow skiing? Because water skiing, it's pretty simple. You just chill, you put on some sunscreen, beach wayfarers, and party.
Well, I don't know if I'd recommend drinking and snow skiing very much. Maybe one, but I wouldn't go much further than that. But
Kyle, you're missing.
if I were to drink and water ski, I don't know how great I'd feel about that one either.
You're missing the point, Kyle, is that what he said to you is if you can water ski while you're putting your headphones on, then you can pick up skiing a lot easier than it is to learn how to water ski.
Yeah, but I get hot when I water ski. I can jump in the water. When I snow ski, I freeze, and I get so cold.
I'll
I don't
let
know
you
why.
handle this one, Chuck.
You've got to pick the right day. If you want to learn, look in the forecast, find a day where it's 35 and sunny in March. I guarantee you're not going to feel hot. The snow's going to feel nice, and it won't be that tough to learn. The whole thing with learning how to ski is, and a lot of people have had this experience, Kyle, where their friends will say, oh, it's easy, I'll show you how. They go up there, and the friends get frustrated really fast. They want to go off on their own, unless you have a really, really good friend that's going to stick with you that's also very skilled or maybe was an instructor at one time. You really want to go to a pro and do this. And, I mentioned this last week that ski areas have packages where you can get the rentals and the lessons, and you get the ticket for the lower mountain where the trails are very easy and gentle. And, their goal is that they want you to learn because they want you to come back. So what happens is you pick a nice day. Don't pick a day, well, like today, for example. Temperatures are not getting out of the teens here in New England, which is fine for me because I'm going to have all my stuff to bundle up. And, I'll be well prepared to have a good time. But as a person who's going out there for the first time, a 35-degree day in February or March when the sun is shining, it'll be just as easy to learn as if you were water skiing. Cold won't even be a part of your vocabulary.
All right, if you convince me, I'm going to try to not freeze next time I go skiing.
Okay, maybe I can hook you up if you're good.
There you go. I guarantee
sure.
you in the next couple of weeks, Chuck, we will have some video of Kyle at least falling into a snowbank or something that we can judge him on his skiing and how he's doing, all right?
Okay,
So we'll
maybe we can start him out snow tubing, get him psyched for the whole thing.
Hey, let's move on to another subject about snowmaking and grooming. And I know we're going to show
Sure.
some video of Killington up here because in the Northeast, yet I don't think we've gotten what they got in the Midwest. So, and again, you talked last week about the biggest difference between ski in the Northeast and when you go to places like Jackson Hole and packed powder and all that stuff. So, but how has snowmaking and grooming progressed? Because it's not, I know I have friends that come out, I'm not going to go up there when it's icy. It's not good snow when they do grooming and they pack it and all that. But it's that's an extreme, isn't it?
Well, I think when people say that, it's a cop-out for one thing, because here in the East, we do the best job of processing our snow. So there are times in the West where you'll have ski trails that don't get groomed for one reason or another. Perhaps they're too steep or something like that. That's not that they have groomed trails, but if you go through a stretch of 9 or 10 days in some parts of the country where there isn't any natural snow at all, those trails get a little bony, they get a little bit firm and hard packed, and whereas here that same trail in the East is getting groomed day in and day night, if it's, on those groomed trails. And so what's going to happen is that same packed powder you were skiing, say after snowfall or after there's a lot of snowmaking on it, as long as we don't run into a rain event or fluctuations in temperatures and we have consistent cold for 9 or 10 days, which is what we're going to have now, I can go out on that ski trail, especially early in the day or during midweek, and I know it's going to feel nice and smooth, and I can go down that trail at whatever clip I choose, whether it be fast or slow. And that's because what happens is ski areas take out their snowcats, and they have various grooming machines on them, power tillers, which will dig down into the snow some 6 inches and make that nice and smooth and loose. If you think about farming, for example, when they're tilling the soil, they're doing that night after night after night at ski areas. And then at ski areas that have night skiing, they're even doing it between the daytime and the nighttime runs. And that's keeping the snow nice and smooth and loose. And what I find is that most people, especially here in the East, there are a lot of us that love powder skiing. And if we're going to see, 10 inches of snowfall, we want to get out there and feel that nice cushion. But you have a whole group of other people when 10 inches of snow falls are not sure what to do because they're so used to using their edges, and they prefer to have that nice groomed trail. I've actually heard people say, well, you know what, there's too much snow. I don't like the skiing as much this way. I like it either way, personally. And so it works out well for me because of 10 inches of snowfalls. I have the ability to ski in the snow that way. But at the same time, if snow is constantly groomed and it feels nice and smooth, that's always a nice ride.
You are watching and listening to Chuck Devine from Snowcountry.com here on Sports Buzz on the Pulse Network, thepulsenetwork.com. I encourage you to go to their website, Snowcountry.com. They live it, they breathe it, they eat it, they sleep it. You want the latest up-to-date and accurate information about snow conditions, what's going on in the mountains, go to their website at Snowcountry.com. You can find them on Twitter at Snowcountry Radio. You can find them at radio stations all over the country on their radio network as they give up-to-date and accurate reports from snow conditions everywhere. Chuck, I want to ask you before we let you go about a couple of mountains that I'm very familiar with. I haven't gone to them as much as I did years ago since we had our kids and we go to my father-in-law's in Maine and we go to Shawnee Peak or Sunday River, but Killington and Smugglers Notch. I know Killington was the mountain I first went to when I was a kid. Always had a good time when up there. Curious what's going on there. And Smugglers Notch, which is right on the Canadian border, I believe it's right on the other side of the mountain, is Canada, is always such a family-friendly mountain. What's going on at those two places?
Well, Killington is, in some of the major changes that they've made over the past 10 years or something like that, they brought in the K1 gondola, so now they have two different gondolas that go to their summit. The other gondola, which has been there forever, is the skyship over by Route 4. That will get open right before the holidays, which is great because you can park over by Route 4 and get to the summit there. And Killington, with several different mountains, has been very aggressive with their snowmaking this year, as they are every single year. And they've been off to a very good start, not to mention the fact that they've picked up natural snow once again right after this little wet weather event that we had on Sunday and Monday. So they've recovered nicely with their snowmaking and also with some natural snow too. And also, Killington has now labeled themselves as the Beast, being the largest ski area in the eastern United States. Certainly different variations of terrain, whether you're going on their very steep Outer Limits Trail, which is where they always hold their Bear Mountain Mogul Challenge at the end of the year. Donna Weinbrecht, the U.S. Olympic gold medal mogul skier from years and years ago, did all her training on the Outer Limits Trail at Killington, and also steeper runs like Superstar. But they also have easy runs that go 6 or 7 miles down the mountain from the summit, like Great Eastern, for example. So yeah, it's great for any type of skier going to Killington, as well as glades trails for lots of skiing between the trees for those who have the skills to do that. Smugglers Notch, a great family area, a place where a lot of people go to learn to ski, and they also have different family attractions, whether it be, the kids zone where all the kids can go, and there are different bounce houses and all types of
my kids still talk about Mogul Mouse. They have a little mascot called Mogul Mouse. They still to this day talk about Mogul Mouse. They thought that was the coolest thing in the world.
I wish I had a picture. I have a picture of my daughter when she was some 10 years younger, hugging Mogul Mouse at Smugglers Notch. Yeah, and they always have the cocoa right there after everyone's done with their ski day. But that's just one side of Smugglers Notch. You go over to Madonna Mountain, and you'll find some of New England's steepest and most challenging trails, without a doubt. I mean, there are some trails there that are to the extent that probably I wouldn't find myself on, and I like to ski on challenging terrain.
Yeah, and it's not skiing out west. It's not the powder by any means, but still, it's one of northern.
There's still plenty of powder at those places.
Yeah, well, I guess my point is this, Chuck. I was leading you into that.
Sorry.
It's so far north here in New England, and it just seems to me it's so far up. At least if you live in Boston, to get there, I've never been disappointed when I go up, and there's always great snow up there because of where it's located and tucked up in there, right?
Oh, sure, and yeah, they certainly get their powder events where you have skiing in waist deep snow. And what happens in a lot of Vermont areas, especially as you get into January, is that you get these storms that can often be isolated to some of the northern spots that you may not see everywhere else in New England. We'll get those storms, whether it be at Neshoba Valley or Wachusett in Massachusetts or Connecticut or the Catskills. A lot of those storms will come up from the south. And then if there's enough cold air, we'll get hit with those nor'easter type storms that will have a big dump. But up in northern Vermont, sometimes the Adirondacks, New Hampshire, those very northern spots will hook up with storms that a lot of areas won't, and they can pick up as much as 3 or 4 inches of snow in a week. And that's where you end up getting some of that skiing in waist deep powder, which is very similar to what you'll have out west. It's just being in the right place at the right time.
All right, with people traveling for the holidays, Chuck, let's finish up with two things. First of all, we'll finish at the end with some gift ideas for skiers,
Sure.
see what's new and different this year, or maybe some of the same old, same old. And then also going out west. A lot of talk about the storms in the Midwest, but how about when you head out west now? Is it just that they got hit so early and so well that it's just maintaining out there, or did they get even more snow now?
They got even more snow. As a matter of fact, they picked some up overnight. So heading out to Utah, we're talking about Alta, Snowbird, Brighton, and Snow Basin. These areas have done so well with snow already this year. I know we have some video from Canyons in Utah, which just had their opening day last weekend, not because they didn't have enough snow, but just because that's when they decide they want to open. Those areas picked up another 8 to 10 inches of snow overnight to go with what's nearly 10 feet of snow already this winter. So you're finding a lot of those spots between 75 and 100% of their terrain, whether it's their nice groomed cruising trails like the type the Deer Valley have, where they're nice and steep and groomed and you can go at a good clip, or you have a lot of powder skiing, whether it be Peruvian Gulch on the backside of Snowbird, or some of the gnarly terrain at Brighton in Utah. Colorado areas are also going to hook up from a little bit from that storm. And then Jackson Hole, Wyoming, which our Herb Stevens, the skiing weatherman, he's going to be doing his shoot out there this coming weekend.
Really?
He's talking about doing some snowcat skiing at Grand Targhee, Wyoming, as these spots are expecting another 2 foot or 2 of fresh snow to go with what's already 15 feet so far this winter. So it's beautiful powder skiing in many of those areas, especially the further north you go in the Rocky Mountains.
What's snowcat skiing?
Well, it's when you ride a snowcat, like a groomer. A lot of ski areas here do it, but they'll do it more in a situation where they'll take you up to a certain spot where you'll have dinner at night, and we'll get some footage of that down the road. Sugarbush, for example, does it, and I know Okemo does it, where you can go for a ride someplace where you can go out for a gourmet dinner, and then you wear everyone wears lights on their heads, I guess similar to what the coal miners would do, and ski down a trail after they've finished their dinner. So they ride the snowcat, the groomer, up the mountain. Now, in the case of the West, they're going out to backcountry terrain, terrain that's not at the ski area, and snow that's been untouched until skiers are going out and making their runs on it. So virgin powder, which is what any experienced skier who loves powder skiing dreams about. This is a chance to live that dream.
One of the great things about skiing are the images, whether it's the videos or the photos, and glad you sent us this. I'd love to do this every week, your photo of the day. This one's from Steamboat, Colorado. Let's talk about Colorado skiing Steamboat in this picture.
Oh, I've been to, I went to Steamboat some 6-7 years ago, and it's really a nice area, and in a lot of ways, I mean, they do have their share of bowl skiing and a little bit that might be above the tree line, but in a lot of ways, Steamboat, while it's 3,000 acres, has a lot of terrain that's similar to New England in the fact that many of their trails are tree lined. Now, when you look out in the vistas, it's unmistakably Colorado because you're not seeing the amount of trees and mountains that you're seeing here in New England. You're looking like you're at one big mountain and seeing other different mountains out on top of a flat plateau. But a lot of the trails are tree lined, but you have plenty of runs where you're just leg burners that will go for 3 miles long, maintaining the same pitch. And Steamboat also has that great old western town, which attracts a lot of people for, the après-ski fun that it has to offer.
All right, Chuck, finally, it is 10 days before Christmas, so what are you getting your skier friends for Christmas this year?
Well, one of the things that I recommend, right off the bat, and let's see if we can, I don't know how, there we go, little look right here, ski socks. So,
there you go, Kyle.
Ski socks, they're very different than regular socks. You don't go and put on a pair of sweat socks or tube socks when you're going to the mountain. That's for shooting hoops or doing whatever else it is that, you may want to do during the warm months, but they don't work when you're skiing. We have a saying here that cotton is rotten, and that's the case when it comes to socks. It's the most important thing. As a matter of fact, I don't even wear the same socks to the mountain that I wear on the mountain because, it seems that the feet would be the first thing to get cold, and you need something that's, of a wool or synthetic material because it wicks away the sweat that's going to be on your feet, because when the sweat freezes, that's what's going to cause those very cold toes. So that's a big one right there. Also, gloves, always fun, and you can see here I've got some, these aren't my heavy-duty winter gloves, but these are gloves to wear when you're just taking your skis off the car and stuff like that, and they're great in the springtime as well. So I'm always one who's an advocate. If you're going to get something for a skier, I say get them something they can wear, because you can never have enough. And I don't know, with golfing, it's the same type of thing. There's never enough stuff you can have. And I don't go for the funny gadgetry or anything like that, but just things that I can use immediately. And socks, I can never have enough of them. And also skiing long johns, especially undershirts. You don't wear a cotton t-shirt as your bottom layer. The bottom layer is the most important layer, and that one also needs to be synthetic. You know, brands like Under Armour or Hot Chilies. You know, Under Armour became so popular so quickly because they gave football players something to wear during the these cold days like we have now. Players at skill positions that they're not wearing a cotton long john or one of those waffle t-shirts that they always used to refer to as warm weather or something that's going to keep you warm. They're wearing synthetic material or wool. It just makes all the difference in the world when that's your bottom layer.
All right, Chuck, before we say goodbye, I just had a thought about this. I mean, we've done 2 of these now. We're going to do it every Wednesday. And there's a couple of things we can do. We're encouraging people about how to keep themselves warm and the best products to buy. We're also encouraging people to go skiing, because you and I are ski lovers, and it's such a great family thing. And now we brought our young Floridian producer Kyle in here. So maybe as the weeks go on, we have Blue Hill Ski Area right down the street here. I mean, we could walk out the door and actually walk to it pretty much. So we're going to get you some video of Kyle starting to ski, and we could start taking that video and encourage Kyle to become a skier with us. How would that sound?
Now, is Kyle going to learn to ski with a ski instructor?
Kyle?
If it's being comped by the Pulse Network, sure. Otherwise, I'm going to watch some YouTube videos and try to learn.
We'll have myself take him out there and help teach him how to ski. I did it with all my kids.
I don't know if I recommend that, Butch.
Okay, so we'll put him with a ski instructor. All right, we'll do that.
Yeah, I want you guys to say friends.
All right, so we'll put him with a ski instructor. We'll get you some video over the next couple of weeks of Kyle on the slopes, and then we can see where that conversation takes us.
All right.
All right, Chuck. Always enjoy the conversation. Snowcountry.com here on the Pulse Network. Have a great week, Chuck.
Thanks, Butch.
Okay, that's Chuck Devine from Snowcountry.com. Yeah, we got to get you out there as an experiment. I mean, you can't pole dance out on the mountain, so you don't have to worry about that. You can't dance in front of the crowd with your skis on. You could try. You could be like Buzz Lightyear. It's falling with style. It's the Pulse Network, and the sports world and us are about to get a lit. What do you got there, Kyle? You got something for me to go
Butch, I like my extreme sports to also be done by squirrels, and that's why I'm rarely good at water skiing. Check out this video.
Okay. Do you know the video that I've used about 30 times in my career? Why? I'll give you one simple reason. Because a squirrel water skiing is just cool damn video. You can't get enough of it. It's like Maggie Rulli with her unruly sports updates. And sports dates. I'll call Barry and ask about that. She's here to make the sports world a little unruly right after this. Come back.
The Pulse Network. It's social TV.